Are fans finally coming to terms with the death of the PlayStation Vita? Check out this article I just read. So I read an article stating how Vita fans are just finally starting to accept the death of the PlayStation Vita. It was put out by Kotaku back in March of 2019, so the news might not be too recent for some people. I'll put a link in the description if you're interested in reading it for yourself. It's true the Vita is dead, but what I found most interesting about the article was that I've been completely oblivious to it. People have been constantly telling me the Vita is dead, but for some reason, I just refuse to believe it. Actually, not so much refuse, but rather acknowledge. I knew the Vita was done for, but in the back of my mind, I didn't care. I was too busy playing the games and making videos for you guys, hoping that if I tried hard enough to spread the word, Sony would somehow come out and relaunch the Vita. Or even better, release a PS Vita 2. Boy, was I foolish. Having devoted almost an entire generation of gaming to the Vita, I missed out on so many other titles released on current-gen consoles. But you know what? Looking back at it now, I don't regret any of it. Sure, it would have been nice to play Resident Evil 7, GTA 5, or maybe even Bloodborne. But if I did, I wouldn't have gotten to play some of the games on PS Vita. I would have never gotten to play Killzone Mercenary, Tearaway, Persona 4 Golden, Muramasa Rebirth, Assassin's Creed Liberation, and Call of Duty Declassified. Okay, I can probably do without the last one, but I mean, at least the multiplayer was fun, right? Sometimes I wonder if I had known the Vita was going to die so soon, would I have still decided to pick one up? I had gotten the Vita a year after it was released, and now when I think about it, the writing might have already been on the wall even as early as 2013. Things weren't looking too good for the console at that point, and yet I still wanted to take a chance on Sony's new handheld. There's a statement in the article where Andrew House, who was the CEO of Sony Computer Entertainment at the time, referred to the Vita as a legacy platform, in a response to reports of the handheld being dead. I think the funny thing about this statement is that it was issued back in May of 2015, a few years after the launch of the PS Vita. The handheld didn't even get a chance to mature, and yet they were already hinting at the possibility of discontinuing. As I read that, I couldn't help but think of the Sega Saturn. Sure, there are two completely different pieces of technology, released at two different time periods, but having lived through the Sega Saturn debacle myself, I knew the Vita was headed for the same fate. Now that's depressing. Where was I during the midst of all this? Well, let's retrace my steps. If I look back at the videos I released around this time, it would appear I was busy playing Minecraft, God of War HD Collection, Ninja Gaiden Sigma 2 Plus, Dead or Alive 5 Plus, and Persona 4 Golden. All of which were not released in 2015, so I was merely playing catch-up with my reviews at that point. According to the article, there was a strong community surrounding the Vita subreddit where fans would gather and discuss the announcement of new games and such. Eventually, it evolved to fans showing off their Vita collections and talking about what PlayStation 4 game worked the best on the Vita using remote play. Now it's basically a ghost town where you occasionally will have someone pass by and announce they just picked up a Vita for cheap and would like to know what games are worth picking up. Which isn't all that different from what's happening on my channel. Every so often, I get a comment here and there about someone just picking up a Vita and asking me what games I would recommend. I gladly jump at the opportunity to give them a list of my favorite titles, but beyond that, I don't know what else to say. Everything on it is just so niche. It's hard to recommend something when the games that are available caters to such a specific demographic. So because of that, I always get this bittersweet feeling when someone tells me they just picked up a Vita. On one hand, I'm thrilled to know the Vita has gained another fan, but on the other, I just feel bad knowing that once the mainstream games are played and that initial high of buying a new system wears off, that person might regret their purchase. Sometimes I'm tempted to just tell them to buy a Nintendo Switch instead. There's also talks of the Vita starting to have hardware problems. I guess age comes for us all, even video game consoles. That beautiful OLED touchscreen is getting a little unresponsive. Static is coming out of one of the speakers, and certain games keep freezing the console. As someone who uses the Vita almost on a regular basis, I can attest to some of these issues. They don't happen frequently, but they do happen, so it's just a matter of time before everything else starts to go. I mean, how long will that OLED screen stay that beautiful? I mean, really. Does anyone else know? Because I don't know much about OLED screens. Let me know in the comments. With the release and success of Nintendo Switch, I was hoping that this would be the thing that might encourage Sony to develop another handheld. Or perhaps even a hybrid console of their own. Knowing that if Nintendo can survive in this market, then why not them? Sadly, that didn't happen. Quite frankly, the opposite happened. I forgot where I read it, but Sony has come out and openly stated there will not be a successor to the PS Vita. I guess they really don't want anything to do with the handheld market anymore. Which is shocking to me because of how well the Switch sold. I figured they would be on the ball trying to do the same thing. I mean, isn't that what everyone in the industry is doing these days? You see something that's successful and you copy it? So why did I make this video? Because I have nothing better to do? Because I have no other things to say about the PS Vita? I mean, how many times can I talk about Killzone Mercenary, right? It's a great game and should definitely be enjoyed by everyone who's a Killzone fan, but it's not enough. There comes a time when you just have to accept. And for me, that happened one night when I was lying in bed with my PS Vita. I had just gotten home from work one night and decided to relax by laying down and playing some PS Vita. I must have fallen asleep because the next thing I know, I awoke to a loud thug on the floor. I thought it was my cell phone, but as I opened my eyes, I realized it was my Vita. Now, this isn't the first time it's fallen to the floor, but for some reason, it was at this moment that I realized that each fall now takes it one step closer to being a paperweight. It's just something that's unavoidable at this point. The Vita isn't gonna last forever. One day, it's gonna give out and not even want to turn on. I realize that now. Games are no longer being released, servers are shutting down, and game vouchers are expiring, or have already expired. Just a heads up, I was recently notified by a fellow member of my Discord that the Sly 3 download code on the Sly HD collection has expired. Which means if you buy a brand new physical copy of the collection, the download code won't work. You're either just gonna have to buy the digital copy of the collection, or if you want a physical copy of the game, get the collection, which will have the first and second game on the cartridge, and just buy the third game digital. I hope that made sense. And if you're wondering what game I was playing in bed that night, it was Castlevania Symphony of the Night. I had just come home from work, so don't think it was the game that put me to sleep. I was already tired by that point. It's an awesome game, by the way, and it plays great on the PS Vita. There's just a few frame rate stutters here and there, but overall, I think it's worth picking up. Get it on the PSN store. I think it's either $5 or $6 at the time of recording this video, so hurry while you can. It's a hell of a lot better than paying $80 for the physical copy on eBay. I mean, who the friggin' hell asked for that much? Like, come on, man. And don't even get me started on this whole black label crap, making the game more expensive than the greatest hits copy. Anyway, back to the Vita. Am I going to stop making Vita content? No. I'm going to keep doing what I've been doing when I first started this channel. I just want you guys to know that I've finally come to terms with the death of the PS Vita. Have you? If you're a new Vita owner and want to know what games are worth checking out, then click on the top video. If you want to know what PS1 games you can play on the Vita, then click on the video next to it. Don't forget to subscribe for more PlayStation Vita content. Later.